Now, back to the ICE issue. I'm going to commend the LA Dodgers organization, because if the reports are what they are true, ICE agents showed up there outside of Dodger Stadium attempting to make deportations and arrest, I would imagine, employees and maybe even fans that were there in the stadium. And the Dodgers said, no, turn around unless you have a warrant. I'm not saying there should be some sort of civil unrest or violence. I would never condone that. But I am saying we should start doing what the Dodgers did. Unless you have a warrant, get the hell out of here. Because guess what? If they don't have a warrant, you don't have to open your door. I would say that for anybody, whether you're undocumented or documented. ICE agents are not allowed to go into your private personal space without a warrant. And they are also supposed to identify themselves. And we are learning across the country, these agents are not identifying themselves, which is extremely dangerous, because let me tell you something, there's going to come a day, and I hope this doesn't happen, but they're going to start approaching the wrong people. And if they don't identify themselves and they break into your home, many people are going to think, and rightfully so, that they have a right to defend themselves. It's just like when law enforcement executes a search warrant, they have to yell police and identify themselves. We're learning stories all over the country that these agents are not identifying themselves. Not only is that against the law, it puts their safety at risk and the safety of the people that they are trying to apprehend and everybody else in the vicinity. It's despicable. We don't know who these people are. They could be Proud Boys. We don't know who they are. You have to identify yourself. I want to play you a story from a local news station. It happened earlier today, where ICE agents showed up in front of a Home Depot. And I didn't want to play just a part of this story because I thought it was very well done and there were witnesses that were interviewed. I wanted to play the whole thing. It's about 2 minutes. This is a story from earlier today where ICE agents were tackling people in front of a Home Depot where kids and families were there seeing everything. And some of the witnesses were interviewed by this local news affiliate. I want to play this for you. Have a listen to this.
Several people were running upwards Wilton's place. I informed them that ICE agents were around the area. They were aware of that, and then that's when an SUV pulled up, came out, 2 agents tackled down a individual with no questions. They placed his face into the dirt, physically apprehended him.
And we reached out to officials for more details on today's raid. They said while they can't comment on every single operation, these raids continue on a daily basis, and that today's raid was routine federal immigration law enforcement operation. You're out here. We've been seeing the gentleman who's been very emotional. His wife was detained. He has no idea where she was taken. But you said some of the people detained today were also your neighbors.
That's right. My neighbors unfortunately got taken. They are not bad people. They are not criminals. They are hard workers. They came here for a better life because that's what the United States is about, right? You have freedom. You come here for a better life because unfortunately you run from countries, your own home. That's not the best, right? You come here looking for a better life. You come here for sanctuary. You come here to think that you're going to make it out here. But unfortunately, with these people coming and taking our own people, the people that constructed California, the people that work for California, the people who do a lot for us, right? They're taking them. What are you going to do when we're not here? What are you going to do when you have nobody left to work with?
And the woman you mentioned who was taken, she's pregnant?
She's actually pregnant. That's the saddest part. She's pregnant. She must have been scared. You don't know if this is going to cause you stress to her baby. You don't know if she might lose the baby from the shock.
Quick question, and I don't mean to come across as insensitive, but this is part of the Trump administration's mandate. President making it clear that anyone who's here, who's not here legally, that this is going to be a part of the process, as inhumane as many may categorize it. There is another argument to that.
I feel like it's wrong. Like I said, they're saying that they're going to take everybody, but why everybody when you have actual criminals that were born here and who have done way worse stuff, and yet they don't get the same punishment we're getting? Why is that? I want an answer to that, seriously. Why is it that criminals can get away with so much who are born here, criminals, and yet our people are innocent? They're working hard. They're doing stuff to make it out here, right?
Thank you.
Think about that. It's a great job by that local news affiliate, by the way. Think about that. Is that the America that you want to live in? It's not the America that I want to live in. Pregnant women in front of Home Depot with families being separated. The argument from the far right is, well, come into this country legally. If that's what you want everybody to do, to come into the country the right way, then how do you explain ICE officials handcuffing and separating families outside of courtrooms when you have these people that are seeking asylum that are showing up for their court date and trying to do it the right way? How do you explain the fact that Tom Homan has said time and time again, our focus is on the violent criminals that happen to be undocumented? But, you know, if we're in a situation where we find some people that are also undocumented, that are nonviolent, we'll take them in as well. Then how do you explain ICE agents showing up outside of courtrooms, handcuffing non-violent criminals? That was obviously a lie, because we know the overwhelming majority of people that are getting deported are nonviolent criminals. So Tom Homan lied. The Trump administration lied about this. The overwhelming majority of these people are good, decent people. But you see, many Trump supporters out there don't see them as such. They see them as brown people. They see brown people as a threat. It's why it's Make America White Again. This is not the country that I want to live in. The country where women are breastfeeding their young children and getting separated with no due process. I don't want to live in a country where a gay hairstylist attempts to go through a legal point of entry into this country seeking asylum, who's never committed a violent crime in his life, who has 2 tattoos on his body that say mom and dad, and he gets sent to an El Salvador prison. That's not the country that I recognize, and it's not the country that I want to live in. But this is Trump America. Why is it, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still not on my side, that Donald Trump welcomes in 10 people that are seeking asylum from South Africa, and all 10 of those people happen to be 100% white? But if you're a brown person living in this country, could be outside of a Home Depot, could be outside of a courtroom, could be anywhere, could be in a synagogue or a church, in a school, and you're someone who pays taxes, you've never committed a violent crime in your life, why is he treating those people like animals? But if you're 100% white coming from South Africa, he treats you like royalty. Why is he allowing anybody, regardless of skin color, that's willing to put up $5 million for a gold card? What about the people that don't have those financial means? Why is he doing this? Well, for starters, it appeases the base. Let's be honest, most Republicans today do not want brown people in this country, and they could sit here and they can tell me otherwise. But here's what I would like all of you to do. If you get into a conversation with a MAGA Republican and they tell you, I have no problem with brown people coming into this country, I just want them to come in the right way. If they make that argument to do, which is a very weak argument, then ask him this very question. Why is it then, or ask them, when was the last time Republicans introduced a bill to make it easier for people to be naturalized citizens? Now, they won't have an answer, and they'll look at you like a deer in headlights. There is one party that has been trying for decades to make it easier for people to be legal citizens. They are known as the Democratic Party. They have introduced bills. They have tried to make it easier for people seeking asylum to come into this country and be legal citizens. The party that is not willing to do so, in fact, they want to make it more difficult, are Republicans. I would say one main reason for that, besides the color of their skin, is the fact that we know that most immigrants that come into this country are not voting Republican. I would imagine that's probably priority number one for the Republican Party. But again, it's very simple. If you get into an argument or a discussion or a debate and you hear these Republicans say, oh, I don't care where you're from, as long as you come into this country legally, we welcome you. Then why is it that Republicans keep voting against bills to make it easier for people to come into this country? It's a very simple question. I think most of us know the answer to that. And it's the same reason why there's less than 1% of those that are in the Republican Party that are black. Why is that? If the Republican Party is so diverse, which, by the way, we know it's not, around 12 to 13% of people in this country are black, give or take. 12 to 13%. Why are only a fraction of those people elected officials in the Republican Party? Why is that? Answer that question for me. Because Republicans usually don't like to vote for black people. And I believe Kamala Harris was a perfect example of that. It's very simple. We don't need to get into the weeds here, ladies and gentlemen. There is one party that does not want open borders, but they want to make it easier for people that are seeking asylum, and they want to treat people like human beings. They don't want to arrest people and separate people from their families that are nonviolent criminals. And, you know, I love this argument, too, that MAGA Republicans seem to make all the time. I hear this argument all the time. Oh, well, Brian, if you're an American and you're a drunk driver or you break the law, you get separated from your family. They try to make an analogy to someone who commits a terrible crime to someone who has never committed a violent crime in their life. And here's the difference. If you're a drunk driver, in most cases, if you don't injure somebody, you spend maybe 12 hours in jail. You're separated from your family for 12 hours. You get due process. You get an opportunity to hire an attorney. You get an opportunity to defend yourself, and you get to go home to your family. There is no comparison between people in this country. That's right, I said people, like it says in our Constitution. Any person has the right to due process. It doesn't say any citizen, it says any person, because our forefathers did that on purpose. And MAGA Republicans are trying to replace the words and the verbiage in the Constitution. Well, guess what? It doesn't work with me, and it shouldn't work with you. And there's no comparison between somebody who gets sent to an El Salvador prison, perhaps for the rest of their life, that is a non-violent criminal. I don't care whether they're legal or not. To someone as an American citizen who commits a crime here in this country, no matter what that crime is, that gets the right to representation and due process. Any person has the right to due process. Doesn't say any citizen, any person. And Donald Trump has defied our Supreme Court. Donald Trump has defied Constitution and the rule of law. And how can some of you people be okay with that? Please explain that to me. How could some of you people be okay with that? How could you be okay with that? Going into religious sanctuaries and deporting people, separating them from their kids, their families, non-violent criminals? How could you be okay with that? Someone who's seeking asylum for themselves and their family, who has a court date and shows up and is responsible for that court date, and even brings a mayoral candidate with them to protect them, and then gets separated from his girlfriend, as we saw the video this week? How could you be okay with that? Mothers being taken away from their children without due process. How could you be okay with that? This country was founded on immigrants. And again, don't give me the argument of, well, Brian, they have to do it the right way. Brian, they have to do it the right way. They have to come into the country the right way. The right way takes 10 to 15 years in some cases. Is that the right way? Is that the America that you want? Somebody who wants to come to this country with their family to make their life better, who has a dream for themselves or their family members and their family members, and you think it should take up to 15 years for them to be naturalized citizens? You're okay with that? Because if you are okay with that, then you have zero credibility. And if you're not okay with that, then you should be criticizing the Republican Party.